Many people happened on the stealth ship, Mary Celeste. In fact, the ship was found abandoned in the Atlantic Ocean near the Azores on December 5, 1872. During sailing in harsh weather, the British Captain de Gracia saw an abandoned ship and apparently was drifting across the Atlantic Ocean near the Azores Islands about 1,000 miles west of Portugal. When the crew of de Gracia boarded the Mary Celeste, they found everything in its perfect order until the crew clothes were carefully packed, and surprisingly no one was found anywhere on the ship, and the only clues about the lack of people were that there was a disjointed pump in waiting area, missing lifeboat. So began one of the permanent mysteries with the sea, and began analyses and theories so unbelievably that one of them was involving sea monsters, the other is the fear of fire because of the load of alcohol, and so far there are more than a century and a half of the theories, but in the end we may have found the answer. Discover Mary Celeste. On November 7, 1872, Captain Benjamin Briggs and the crew of the ship Mary Celeste, a merchant ship carrying a shipment of alcohol, left New York Harbor in Genoa, Italy. Captain Benjamin brought a crew of 7 carefully selected with his wife and daughter, but they never reached their destination. Mary Celeste, New York. The ship resisted its treacherous overseas voyage and whaled for 2 weeks. Then on 25th of November the captain entered what would be the last entry in the record, and at that time there was nothing wrong with the records, but when de Gracia found Mary Celeste on the 5th of December there was no one in sight. To the ghost ship, he found 3.5 feet of water and the lowest point in the ship was below the water line. The cargo was intact although some barrels were empty, and what was more, the ghost ship was still seaworthy. So they decided to sail and the de Gracia crew split into 2 teams. The 2 ships quickly sailed to Gibraltar where they could claim rescue rights under the law. But the strange thing was why the ship was abandoned. It was perfectly seaworthy, with enough supplies for 6 months of food and water on board, and the crew's possessions were stored there, so it was logical that the captain would not leave the ship except in the most precise circumstances, and the circumstances did not seem to be painful at all. It is a mystery for nearly a century and a half. Theories of the disappearance of the ship's crew. Some believed that the ship's crew drank alcohol, and a battle ensued in the sea, but that theory was far away. There was no sign of violence. Some said the ship might have been raided by pirates, but there were no valuables missing either. There is another story by Arthur Conan Doyle on this subject in detail, which holds that there is someone who seized the ship, but where did he and anyone else? The answer was sea monsters, and although all these theories did not match any of the evidence with reality, perhaps the most accepted theory was that vapors coming out of alcohol had closed the lid of the cage, and then for fear of a fire that could have left the crew abandoned. When the 2 ships arrived in Gibraltar, de Gracia presented his claim for a rescue operation and a court was set up to study the case, but after a 3-month investigation they could not find any evidence of what had happened. On board the ship, the crew eventually received de Gracia for the rescue, and was about 1/6 of Mary Celeste's value of $46,000. Truth. In 1884, Arthur Conan Doyle wrote his short story based on the story of Mary Celeste. The publicity of the story led to a new investigation of the vessel, but no new evidence was found. Finally, in 2002, the documentary Anne McGregor began investigating new and different methods, where he rebuilt the stealth ship and concluded that the captain had made a mistake in the timing device and was desperate as Mary Celeste was 120 miles west of where she should have been. The captain expected to see the Earth 3 days before, Santa Maria Island in the Azores. He may have been looking for a refuge from harsh weather, but none of this will make the ship's captain abandon it. But McGregor also learned that the ship had recently been refurbished and that coal dust and debris from reprocessing had blocked the pumps, which can make the ship seaworthy. With no pumps in place and no way to pump any water that might naturally make its way to the bottom of the ship, Captain Briggs might have decided. With the ship out of the way, Santa Maria, the crew had to reduce its losses and simply try to save itself, from the ship and to the ground. McGregor's theory is not universally accepted or achievable, but at least clearly aligned with actual evidence, for example, the disjointed pump. In that way, and finally, almost 130 years after the disappearance of the crew, Mary Celeste's mystery may have been solved in a scientific and acceptable way.